Bismillah. What's today's date? Bismillah. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we continue in the explanation, the great Imam Abu al-Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And this tremendous treatise entitled Hamawiyyah, with the time now 6:50 p.m. It's Thursday night according to the Tariq al-Miladi, the Gregorian calendar. Wednesday night. But technically, with the Islamic calendar, it's considered Thursday night, or the night of the 20, if I'm not mistaken, whatever you want, the 29th of Rabi' al-Awwal, the year 1443, after the migration of our prophets, alayhi salatu wasalam. As we continue, as we explain from the intricate affairs or events that had taken place in history, from the source of why the Muslims divided, and the point of weakness. As it started, we know before that, it started with the time of the Khalifa al-Rashid, the Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, with the attempts that were made against his life from the Khawarij, and the affairs pertaining to Ali ibn Abi Talib likewise, were also from the affairs and the attempts of the Khawarij, and the plots continued after the virtuous centuries elapsed until those sects appeared. From them was the Shia, as they appeared also during the time of those Khulafa. As the Shia appeared, and the Khawarij, as they were the beginning for those deviated sects or Islamic sects. And then after those sects from, like we said, the Khawarij and the Rawafid or the Shia emanated or developed another sect. Those sects is what Shaykh is speaking about here, who are called those sects that were affected by ilm al-kalam, the sects that were affected by knowledge of rhetoric, meaning philosophy and logic and the likes. So philosophy and logic, those groups started in light of what Shaykh al-Islam mentioned here. From them, as we said, was Ja'd ibn Dirham. Ja'd ibn Dirham was the mu'assis. He was the founder of the deviant sects from the Muslims who started that sect, the Jahmiyyah. We said the Jahmiyyah, even though it's ascribed to Jahm ibn Safwan, but the person who started it was Ja'd ibn Dirham, as we mentioned. However, Shaykh al-Islam, if you read your book, it said, وَأَظْهَرَهَا فَنَسِيَتْ فَنُسِبَتْ مَقَالَةُ الْجَهْمِيَّةِ إِلَيْهِ. The Ja'd ibn Dirham started the sect or the deviations in the religion, meaning the fundamentals or the foundations of the religion of Islam. And those who had taken it from him was Jahm ibn Safwan, as Shaykh al-Islam, if you read your book. It said, وَأَخَذَهَا عَنْهُ الْجَهْمِ ibn Safwan وَأَظْهَرَهَا. عَنْهُ الْجَهْمِ ibn Safwan. وَأَخَذَهَا عَنْهُ الْجَهْمِ ibn Safwan. وَأَظْهَرَهَا. عَنْهُ الْجَهْمِ ibn Safwan. Jahm ibn Safwan made it famous. Until the group, the deviant sect who were affected by logic, and were affected by what? Philosophy was ascribed to him. Keep in mind, because I want everyone to keep in mind that all these affairs that we're speaking about is inspiration from the devils. Because you'll find that logic, philosophy returns back to magic in the chain of what we're discussing right now. The chain of narrators who have been affected by philosophy and magic returns back to an individual that practiced magic, who was the Baaz ibn Aqsa. So you'll find it's satanic affairs, in addition to satanic affairs. For why would a Muslim busy himself with affairs that his origin returns back to satanic practices? Philosophy, logic, and the likes all return back to affairs that's connected with what? Connected with the devils. So logic and magic and anything connected with it returns back to their type of inspiration. Similar to that, Darwinism. Darwinism, who was started by who, everyone? Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, who came up with the theory of Darwinism, that human beings evolved from apes and they evolved from apes and monkeys. Not realizing that Charles Darwin was a Mason. Charles Darwin was a Mason, and he didn't even believe in his own theory because he was a devil worshiper. All of them believed in what? All of those affairs and all of those people believed in a higher power. So the fact that you say that they believe in what? The evolvement from monkeys, he didn't even believe in himself. All these affairs are what? All affairs that if you study it, you will come to the conclusion that the methodology of the Salaf is the truth. So let's read it quickly so we can be on one page. We have a lot to cover. Shaykh al-Islam talked about the isnad of the Jahmiyyah. So the belief that Allah is not above the throne returns back to Ja'd ibn Dirham, which is inspiration from the devils. So those beliefs that Allah is everywhere, or that Allah is not above, returns back to those Satan, or if you want to say, satanic beliefs and practices. The belief that Allah, because these affairs is crazy, because these people that started these satanic affairs and spreaded it didn't believe it themselves. Similar to who? The devils. The devils start certain affairs and inspire people with certain affairs, and they don't even believe it. The devils don't even believe it. But they know it's a way to what? Mislead the people and misguide them. But they don't even believe it. As Shaitan himself will say on the day of resurrection. Now I disbelieve in what? You ascribe to me or associate with me and partners with Allah. So it's to show you that the devils and who they inspire from those who so-called embrace their ideas and concepts and then put them to practice, the devils along with them who they inspire from the human beings, they don't even believe it. As Charles Darwin didn't even believe his own theory. But it was used as a smokescreen to mislead the people. Whereas, God, Shaitan, doing shut up. Shut up. Excuse me, everyone, the battery died. كيف هذا زي؟
أنا سنة for work.
تفضل. Do you have the translation, Muhammad?
Yeah, it should be on the Google Doc.
On the what again?
What Google Doc?
Google Doc.
You should have that Google Doc here.
Oh.
Send it to me.
Okay. You send it to one of the brothers. Like Shaykh al-Islam, as he goes on to say, وَأَظْهَرَهَا فَنُسِبَتْ إِلَيْهِ. So, Jahl al-Safwan, he made it famous and widespread amongst the Muslims. وَقَدْ قِيلَ إِنَّ الْجَعْدَ أَخَذَ مَقَالَتَهُ عَنْ أَبَانِ بْنِ سَمْعَانَ. So this is what Shaykh al-Islam mentions. He said that Jahl, that he had taken his what? He taken his statement from Aban ibn Sam'an. Aban ibn Sam'an. We'll talk about all these affairs in a minute. Aban ibn Sam'an, who had taken it from Talut ibn Ukht Labid ibn al-A'sam. And Talut had taken that statement from what? Labid ibn al-A'sam, the Jew who practiced magic upon the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the whole isnad returns back to the devils from all these affairs. So the deviant sects in Islam who've been affected by knowledge of rhetoric, logic, philosophy, returns back to an individual who used to practice magic. Rather, he did magic upon the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. So know that the origin of what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning here, the source of how Ja'far al-Dirham became misguided, he became misguided from where everyone? Debating. Debating with who? Philosophers from who? From the Sabi'ah. The Sabi'atul Falasifa, as we mentioned. That's what we're going to speak about today. Right, so let's read it quickly. Shaykh al-Islam, he goes on to say, وكان الجعد هذا فيما قيل من أهل حران وكان فيهم خلق كثير من الصابئة والفلاسفة بقايا أهل دين النمرود والكنعانيين. So I'm going to read it quickly in English. Ja'd ibn Dirham, it was said that he was from the people of Haran. And there were a lot of people amongst them from the Sabi'ah. From the Sabi'ah. We talked about the Sabi'ah, that the Sabi'ah were who, everyone? They were the remnants of those who followed who, everyone? Namrud. Namrud. Who's Namrud? Namrud was those who used to what? Who made enmity during the time of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Namrud. Or as they translate in English, Nimrod. I think they translate, if I'm not mistaken, Nimrod. A Namrud, of those who remained upon the way of Namrud al-Kan'aniyin. This will be discussed next class. As Namrud, his name was Namrud ibn Kan'an. Namrud ibn Kan'an. There was other different names that were mentioned about his name. But just let's suffice with that. Namrud ibn Kan'an. As he was one of the muluk of the dunya who continued, as we know, in his kingdom, as Ibn Kathir mentions, for 400 years. And he oppressed, and he also ran, or he was very arrogant and haughty in the lands. And he preferred the dunya over proper guidance when Prophet Ibrahim called him to what was correct, which is unification of Allah and His worship. The misguidance had what? Led him astray in regards to the denial of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his arrogance in embracing what was proper guidance. In regards to, as Shaykh al-Islam mentioned, because I want everyone to focus, because we mentioned this last class, a Namrud is who, everyone? He was the king of As-Sabi'ah. He was the king of As-Sabi'ah, the Sabians. As-Sabi'atul Kan'aniyin. Notice he said Kan'aniyin in his books. Kan'aniyin was from where? That was from? He was from also Sabi'ah, Namrud. Because Namrud's name was what? Namrud ibn Kan'an. So, Al-Namrud, he's the king of As-Sabi'at al-Kan'aniyin al-Mushrikeen, the polytheists from the Sabians. We said that the Sabians were of different sects. Some of them believed in Allah. Some of them became affected by philosophy. Some of them, they did break down into different groups. You'll find that even Ibn Jawzi that he mentioned about the Sabi'ah. We mentioned this about a couple of classes ago. I'll read it quickly. As Ibn Jawzi mentioned Zad al-Masir, he said, وفي الصابئين سبعة أقوام. There's 7 statements concerning the Sabi'in. I'm just going to mention a few of them because I don't want to go too deep into this. He said from them أنهم صنف من النصارى ألين قولا منهم هم السائحون الملحقة أوساط رؤوسهم. They're from the Sabi'in and the Sabians, from the Christians. He said that they had a softer, or if you say less statement of what they did not say. Even though they were similar, but they didn't go to the extremes as the Christians did in regards to Jesus, the Son of Mary. And those are the ones who we're speaking about now, who believed in Allah on the last day, and then they did not raise Jesus, the Son of Mary, above his status that Allah gave him, which is to be a messenger and a prophet, and he was not Allah, or he was not Lord, like the different statements that the Christians said. So, and that was also mentioned in the book of Allah, if you look at your books. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said from amongst the Sabians who did believe in Allah in the last day, even though we consider them these days upon kufr, even though it's not the disbelief of ishraq, it's not the disbelief of polytheism, because they say that Allah is one. However, they still consider kuffar due to the fact that they're upon a way or a religion that's unacceptable with Allah Ta'ala due to the fact that it's not the Sharia of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right. So we say in this regard, Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, I'm just reading quickly. He said, so keep in mind, I want everyone to memorize this. If we come back tomorrow, and I want it understood properly, that Namrud was the king of the Sabians, the Kan'aniyin for the polytheists. So keep in mind that Ja'd ibn Dirham debated with certain individuals. He says, Sabi'a wal Falasifa, he had taken knowledge from them. It was said that, let me just keep reading. Kan'aniyin mushrikeen, from the Sabians. So he was affected by the Sabians. He was affected by the Sabians, meaning the polytheists from amongst them. So keep in mind, so he goes on to say names. So Namrud was the king of As-Sabi al-Kan'aniyin. Was Namrud the only king of the Sabians? That's one question I want to ask everyone. Was he the only king? Namrud. Ahsant. No. However, the name was utilized and put for what? As a title. Ahsant. That's what I want everyone to realize. As a title. Now, listen to Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say. Same thing. Read your books. وَفِرْعَوْنَ مَلِكُ الْقِبْطِ الْكُفَّارِ. Fir'aun is the king of Al-Qibt. Those from Egypt, meaning the disbelievers amongst the people of Egypt, were called the Aqbat. The Aqbat or Aqbat. It's in your book. Qibt. The singular is Qibt. The plural is Aqbat. Fir'aun, was he the only king of the people of Egypt, meaning for the disbelievers from amongst them, or was there a lot of Fara'ina? There was a lot of them. However, his name was utilized as a what? As a title. Ahsan. Now you still understand. So let's read it. He said, Namrud was the Malik al-Sabi al-Kan'aniyin al-Mushrikeen. Kama Kisra. Just as Kisra was the king of who? Of Persia and the fire worshippers. Was he the only king? Kisra? Of the people of Persia? Or the fire worshippers? Or was that utilized as a title? It's a title. Used as a title. Fir'aun was the king of Al-Aqbat al-Kuffar. And Najashi was the king of who? Of the Christian Abyssinians. Or the Abyssinian Christians, excuse me. However, was he the only king of the Christians in Abyssinia? Was he? No. However, his name was put for the what? For the title. Even though he was not Ahsan. That's what I want everyone to understand. Even though he was not the only king. So that was Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning here. He said Namrud was the king of the polytheists, or the polytheists Kan'aniyin Sabians. And it was just a title. Even though he wasn't the only ruler. There was plenty of kings from amongst them that was the king of those people. Similar to that, these other nations, such as what? The people of Persia. And similar to who? Pharaoh. And who? Najashi, who's the king of what? The Abyssinian Christians. Notice Shaykh al-Islam said, Ismu jins lasmu alam. A title for the people, not a what? Not the name of the what? Of the actual individual here. Here, in this context. I just explained it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I just explained it. I said, even though the name was put there, that means does not necessitate he was the only what? Was the only king. But however, his name is utilized as a title for them. Is it clear? Is it clear? طيب. He said, Ismu jins lasmu alam. He said, كانت الصابئة إلا قليلا منهم. Now this is what Shaykh al-Islam was going to say. He said, the Sabians except a little from among, a small group from amongst them. Hence, in that time, they were upon polytheism. They were upon polytheism and their scholars. He said they were upon polytheism and their scholars were what? Their scholars were what? Falasifa. They were philosophers. He said their scholars were philosophers. He said even though the Sabit, he might not be a polytheist. قد لا يكون مشركا. Rather, he could be a believer in Allah on the last day. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, those who say, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number what? 62. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى وَالصَّابِئِينَ الصَّابِئُونَ no. وَالصَّابِئِينَ I mixed it up with the other ayah, Surah Al-Ma'idah. وَالصَّابِئِينَ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُمْ أَجْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. To the ayah, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number what? Is it 60? Its name is 62 in the classes. Verily, those who believe and those who need, and those who are from the Yahud, from the Jews and the Christians, and the Sabians, who believe in Allah on the last day. Like, a person might say, does that mean that they're believers? No. No. However, those times, during the time of the message of Allah, because of them being upon what was the correct belief at that particular time, necessitated that when the message came to the message of Allah, what? They immediately embraced it. Because they were upon what was correct. That's number one. Number two, even though they believed in Allah on the last day, did not remove them from the fact that they're what? Kuffar. Why? Even though their kufr is not the kufr of ishraq. Because this is a doubt that's still used to this day. Well, what about the Christians that don't believe Jesus is Lord? What about the Christians that say Jesus is just a prophet? Is that enough? So we say that their kufr is not ishraq, not polytheism. However, their kufr is what? Say it again.
Kufr not following the Prophet.
Ahsan. Due to the fact that they didn't follow the Sharia of who? Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because the Sharia of what they are upon has been what? Abrogated.
حي على الصلاة
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة أنت سيد الفضيل وبعث مقام محمود Right, so that's what we wanted to mention, because you'll find in tafsir, brothers and sisters, that Ibn Kathir even mentions this. He said there were a lot of kings of the people of Egypt over the time of Bani Israel. Pharaoh or Fir'aun was not the only king. There were others. He even mentions that. He said, فَرَاعِنَا كَثِيرًا. There are a lot of fara'ina, meaning the plural Fir'aun. The singular is Fir'aun, the plural is fara'ina. He said there was a lot of fara'ina during the time. However, his name was put on there as the title. Hence, there were what? A lot of kings that were over them. So his name was used as a what? Ismu jins instead of ism alam. It was used as a title for them, not as a specific what? Only king. Is it clear? Is it clear? Is it clear, everyone? These are the type of benefits we need to what? Study closely and examine. Because these affairs are very important. The point why Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning this, he's given the origins of where these affairs originated from, how they're inspiration from the devils. Number one. And number two, the chain of narrators, how and where, how are they affected? He was teaching us of how they became affected, how they became destroyed. So we can take a what? Lesson from it. That these people, this is to let you know that the evil of these affairs, this is where they originated. They originated from the devils. The devils inspired their awliya, those who are close to them, from certain individuals who are upon paganism, because we know paganism is also inspiration from the devils. We know that, right, everyone? If you go back to the time of Prophet Nuh, who inspired the people of Nuh to worship the statues and those images? Except it was the shaitan. It was inspiration from the devils. Similar to that, magic is inspiration from the devils. Similar to that, of magic and logic, similar to that, inspiration from the devils. Because we know ultimately that philosophy and logic leads down the road to what? Atheism, which is all satanic. Even though the devils themselves don't believe it. Right, everyone? But what we're saying is, he's teaching and enlightening us that these people that started these deviant sects, because a lot of the Muslims to this day are affected by these statements, such as Allah is not above. How many Muslims say this to this very moment? Thousands, if not millions. And it's all inspiration from where? From the shaitan himself. But he's also teaching us how these people were affected and where they had taken their knowledge from. Such as, he's saying, during the time of Jacob the Dirham, he had taken his knowledge from who? The Sabians. The Sabians, even though Shaykh al-Islam, of course we know, he was highly intelligent, so he gives us more details on top of that. So he says to us, even though there are Sabians from amongst them, whose kufr is not ishraq, it's not paganism, but they're still kuffar. It's not paganism where they worship along with Allah another deity. They believe in Allah on the last day to the end of it. However, they're still upon what? Disbelief. This is what Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say. He said, لكن كثير منهم وأكثرهم كانوا كفارا. He said, however, a lot from amongst them, majority of them, he said they were kuffar mushrikeen. He's talking about during the time, the message of Allah, of course. كما أن كثيرا من اليهود والنصارى بدلوا وحرفوا وصاروا كفارا. He said similar to that, a lot of those from the Jews and the Christians. He said they changed and they distorted the message. And they became unbelievers or disbelievers or pagans. He said, فَأُولَٰئِكَ الصَّابِئُونَ الَّذِينَ كَانُوا إِذْ ذَاكَ كَانُوا كُفَّارًا مُشْرِكِينَ. He said, during that time, meaning the time of who, everyone? فأولئك الصابئون الذين كانوا إذ ذاك كانوا كفارا مشركين وكانوا يعبدون الكواكب ويبنون لها الهياكل. He said the majority of them were mushrikeen, meaning the Sabians, and they were disbelievers, polytheists, and they used to worship the stars, and they used to build lofty structures for them. How did you translate that, Muhammad? Al-Hayakim.
Temples.
Ahsan. He also used to build temples for them.
So not like observatories. I said, but not like observatories.
Observatories? What's an observatory?
Like it gives
Something high so you can see. Could, I guess it might be comprehensive for all those meanings. A high, lofty observatory, meaning the building is high so you can see things a lot better. Could be. I said. Fine. So let's go on to say because we got a lot of stuff to cover. Fine. So now let's read what Shaykh al-Islam said. So this is the origin of where Ja'far ibn Dirham had taken his knowledge. He taken it from who? These individuals. The Sabians who were polytheists and was affected by what? Philosophy. If you understood that point, you understand what Shaykh al-Islam said there. Without me adding extra detail. Is it clear, everyone? Fine. So this is the origin of the ilm al-kalam, or the knowledge of rhetoric, returns back to these people. Sabians, polytheists, philosophical Sabians. Polytheists, philosophical Sabians is the origin of the ilm al-kalam. And keep in mind that these Sabians were also what? Polytheists, because Shaykh al-Islam clearly says here that they were what? Used to worship what? Stars. And he used to build lofty structures for them. Or he used to build those high lofty temples. And just as Muhammad, he called them an observatory. The observatory is like a high building that, for people, I think, to observe the stars, if I'm not mistaken. And that's how they examine them and how they so-called draw close to them or to see them. For those type of affairs is the origin of the ilm al-kalam. So if you tell an individual that to say, or the belief that Allah is not above, goes back to this individual. Number one, it goes back to Ja'far ibn Dirham, not Ja'far ibn Safwan. Ja'far ibn Dirham, who had taken his knowledge from who? Abad ibn Sam'an. And he taken his knowledge from those who were from the polytheistic philosophical Sabians. Those Sabians who are upon polytheism, and those Sabians who are upon philosophy. Even though the Sabians were upon different sects, but those type that Ja'far ibn Dirham had taken his knowledge from was those kind. Those who were affected by polytheism, and those who were affected by what? Logic. Is it clear, everyone? So that's what he was trying to mention here. That's why you'll find that Shaykh Muhammad al-Mahdi mentioned. He said, يريد أن يبين الشيخ إن أصل علم الكلام يرجع لهؤلاء ثم استطرد وبين مسائل علمية منها أن الألقاب التي تبين ذكرها ليست أعلاما الأدلة ثم إن الصابئة فيهم الكفار والمشركون وفيهم المؤمنون كما أن اليهود والنصارى كذلك. So Shaykh al-Islam, let's keep continuing. So now let's read the next paragraph. Can you read it for me?
And the way or school of thought of the negators concerning the Lord is that He is not described with anything except salbiyyah, characteristics that come in the context of negation, or idafiyah, characteristics that are understood when attached or ascribed to other than it, or a combination of both.
Ahsan. So before we move on, we just understood the point that the origin of rhetoric returns back to the what, everyone? Returns back to the philosophical Sabians. Returns back to that. Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, وَمَذْهَبُ النُّفَاءِ مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ فِي الرَّبِّ أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ لَهُ إِلَّا صِفَاتٌ سَلْبِيَّةٌ. He said the methodology of those who negate the characteristics of Allah in regards to Allah, in regards to our Lord, he said you'll find that they don't have anything except sifat salbiya. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago already. Sifat salbiya, meaning characteristics that come in the context of negation, which is in the Quran. If you find in the Quran, in the ayat or the verses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates from Himself characteristics that do not befit Him, such as sleep, such as weariness, such as tiredness, such as forgetfulness, such as death, to the end of it. or such as need, and having a partner, or having children, or having a wife, to the end of those characteristics that does not befit the deity. That's what's correct. However, Ahl Sunnah, the correct methodology, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, is what everyone, Allah does not negate anything from Himself except that He brings another affair, which He says, أن النفي المحض ليس بشيء إلا إذا تضمن أمرا وجوديا. That mere negation is nothing, except that you have to bring something else in its place in order for it to be complete. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates from Himself characteristics that do not befit Him to affirm whatever, as we said last week, what the completeness of what was negated. Allah negates from Himself forgetfulness in order to affirm from Himself absolute complete awareness and knowledge. To the end of the examples we gave, right? However, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah has mentioned here that the people that do not have proper principles in regards to understanding the Quran properly, what they do is they come to the Quran and they don't understand these principles. So they think what's praiseworthy is just mere negation, without bringing the affair of what? Affirming the completeness of what was negated, as we just mentioned. So they'll just suffice with just mere negation. And wallahi, if you listen to some of these people, this is exactly what they do. For example, a suluk. For example, if you was to read some of the statements, such as from the books by Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, from his book, rahimahullah, in a book called Maqalat al-Islamiyyin wa Ikhtilaf al-Musallin. The statements of the people of Islamiyyin, meaning the people who ascribe to Islam but they're upon deviation. And the different affairs, even though they all say that they ascribe to Islam and they pray, but they still have ikhtilaf in their what? In their fundamentals. That's what he called his book. In his book, you'll find that he brings the type of the type of praise that the people of deviation give to Allah. Which if you was to hear it, it would make your skin crawl. For example, they say, oh Allah, how do they praise Allah? What's their so-called way of venerating or magnifying or glorifying Allah? What's their way? They'll say, for example, that He's not a body. You're not a possessor of a soul. You're not a possessor of blood. You're not a possessor of skin. You're not tall. You're not short. Any person that will what? As we mentioned in this last class, even amongst the creation, if you came and the king wanted you to praise him, you said to him, you're not tall, you're not short, you're not light, you're not brown, you don't have big feet, you don't have short feet. I think the king would become upset, wouldn't he? Like, were you making a mockery of me? Are you making a fool of me right now? This is your praise that you're giving me? You're not tall, you're not short, you don't have any blood, you don't have any bones. You're not slow, but you're not fast. You're not blood, you're not skin, you don't possess a soul. To the end of the negation of what they do, which you'll find that this is the type of praise that they bring. This is not perfection. For verily this type of aqidah is what leaked in the belief of the Mu'tazila and the Asha'ira. As you'll find a lot of their books. If you'll find that a lot of them that they say, what's the tafsir al-wahdaniyah? Meaning, how do you say wahdaniyah, Allah being alone in His worship? They say, this is how they'll say it. Verily Allah, ليس بمركب وليس بذي عرض أو جسم. You'll find that that's how they praise Allah. ليس بدم وليس بلحم وليس بذهب ليس بخشب. Oh, they'll ask, if they were asked, what does the meaning of wahdaniyah? They say, oh, He's not assembled. He's not a person that has a body. He doesn't have blood. He doesn't have skin. He doesn't have gold. He's not made of wood. To the end of it. That's the type of praise they give of Allah. Which is a type of praise, as they say, taqasha'irru minhu al-julud. It's a type of praise that makes your skin crawl. Weird. It's extremely weird. That's the type of praise and veneration they give to their Lord. That's their so-called way of praising Allah. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? This is what Shaykh al-Islam is saying. Now, if you read it, he's saying this is it. He said they don't have nothing except what? Sifat salbiyah. They don't have anything except negation. Negation, and then they don't put in its place the opposite, the complete opposite of what was negated, as we mentioned. Right, everyone? So this is the type of, you'll even find that Shaykh Muhammad Amal al-Jami mentions the exact same thing. So وَلَيْسَ بِذِي عَرَضٍ أَوْ جِسْمٍ تَجِدُونَ كَلَامًا مِنْ هَذَا الْقَبِيلِ وربما قال ليس بدم ولا لحم ولا ذهب ولا خجر كلام يدل على عدم تقديرهم لرب العالمين حق قدره. هذه هي السلوب التي عند القول وتسمى الصفات السلبية لأنها واقعة في سياق النفي. He said, this is their type of praise of Allah, just mere negation. You don't have any blood, you don't have any bones, you don't have any blood, you don't have any skin, you don't have any gold, you're not made of or compiled of wood, to the end of it. He said, speech that if you was to hear it, it does not indicate of them praising Allah as He deserves to be praised. This is the type of negation that these people have. So that's number one. Number two, if you look at your books, what they call idafiyah. As-sifat al-idafiyah, meaning attaching a characteristic to something else. One characteristic to another and attaching it. For example, it is the characteristic in which it relies upon the understanding of another characteristic. الصفة الإضافية هي الصفة التي يتوقف فهم معناها أو تصورها على فهم غيرها. Meaning this, when they say the attach, or the, if you want to say, additional characteristic, what do they mean by that? Meaning that you take a characteristic, and in order for you to understand it, you would have to bring another one. Connect it in order for you to so-called understand it. For example, you can understand that meaning in common language. For example, fatherhood and, if you want to say, bunuwa. Fatherhood, or if you want to say, how do they translate bunuwa? Like affairs pertaining to children. Al-ubuwa, or fatherhood, or being a father, the only way that you can so-called put in proper perspective, except that you have to attach it was pertaining to the children. And likewise the opposite. Childrenhood, for lack of better words. In order for you to understand it, you will have to understand fatherhood properly. To understand that, you have to understand this, meaning in order for you to understand the father, look at the children understand, you look at the father, attach it. That's what they call so-called characteristics that have to be connected. However, as it pertains to Allah, as-sifat al-idafiyah, or what they call the characteristics that you attach, if you look at your books. For example, you'll find that the people of deviation bring statements such as, Allah is not above, and in order for you to understand that, they say Allah is not below either. For example. So they brought one type of what? They brought one negation. In order for you to understand that one, you will have to bring another one. So they say, no, Allah is not above, nor knows Allah what? Below. Al-ulu wa-sufr. That type of example is called what? Sifat al-idafiyah. The characteristics that it needs to be attached with another word in order for you to understand it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So, your perspective or the understanding of Allah, being, or so-called negation of Allah being above, it also depends on your perspective or your understanding of what? Of below, what they call sufr. Similar to the example that we just gave a couple of minutes ago, which is absolute nonsense. So those who are pertaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll find that those Muslims upon deviation will come with weird statements such as, Allah is not above, nor is He below. Nor is He to the right, nor is He to the left. Or Allah is not above the arsh, nor is Allah under the arsh. And He's not to the right, and He's not to the left, to the end of it. طيب. Notice that every word was connected with another one. Right, everyone? That's called sifat idafiyah. That's called characteristics where it has to be attached with one in order for you to understand it. Is it clear? طيب, so let's move to the next one. I want to keep going. أو مركبة منها. Or you'll find that they attach all of it together. Negation, bringing another characteristic, and bringing that adat to nafi. Bringing in the context a word that negates everything. For example, laysa. ليس الله فوق العرش ولا تحت العرش. Allah is not. So that's a word that what? Negates. Allah is not above, nor is Allah what? Under. He's not above the throne, nor is he under. So that's what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning here. He's saying you'll find that they just negate, and we just explained the meaning of negation, or they'll connect it with another word, or they'll combine it together with a word that negates it. Is it clear? Is it clear or is it not clear? So you say ليس فوق ولا تحت أصبحت or أصبحت مركبة من الإضافة. It became attached with another word, and he also included in it what? Something that it clearly what? Negates it, as we just mentioned. This is how you'll find that those who've been affected by philosophy and those who've been affected by their way praise Allah. This is how they do it. So now you read Shaykh al-Islam, what he's saying, you understand it. Now read it. He said, the way of those who negate from these people in regards to Allah, as it pertains to Allah, is that they don't have anything except sifat salbiyah. Sifat salbiyah. Characteristics of negation, where they just negate, that's it. And we talked about those affairs. For example, they take the ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah, لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. Allah is not overcame by sleep, nor what? No weariness or exhaustion. Which is correct. However, our methodology in regards to when we read these verses in the Quran, we bring the correct method, which is we negate from Allah exhaustion, sleep. We negate that from Allah in order to what? Affirm the completeness of what we negated. Meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we negate from him sleep in order to affirm for him absolute perfect what? Ability. Qudratul kamila. We negate from Allah sleep in order to affirm for him absolute perfect ability. And absolute perfect strength and dominance and ability. And similar to that, weariness. Also, same thing. We negate from Allah exhaustion and weariness, or being rendered weary or tired, in order to affirm for him what? Absolute complete ability. Absolute complete strength. Absolute complete what? Dominance. However, that's not their version of so-called negation. Theirs is just negate. That's it. Allah is not above. And if you, like we said to this day, here and sit with some of these people, you'll find this is exactly what they do. I just sat with someone who was affected by those people that go to 40 Fish and Water, and he did exactly what Shaykh al-Islam said. Exactly. They say Allah is not above. Allah is not above the throne. Allah, my Lord, does not sit. My Lord does not. My Lord does not. My Lord doesn't have that. My Lord does not have. But. Exactly what he said to this day is exactly what they do today. Just like I said, a 15-year-old, he was affected. It lets you know how busy Shaitan is. How busy Shaitan is in trying to destroy the people. Destroys the Aqidah. A 15-year-old? Really? 45th Street? Falling into the worst satanic of all affairs, which is to be deviated in your belief in this regards to your Lord. He said, oh, my Lord doesn't sit. My Lord is not above. My Lord is not this. What does Allah have? Does he have any characteristics? That's what you'll find them say. Well, they do not. They do not. He does not have. He does not have. He does not have. What is all that? That's exactly what Shaykh al-Islam is describing. Exactly. But those who been affected by the knowledge of rhetoric, especially in regards to the abundance or loftiness of Allah over His creation, who've been affected by philosophy in this aspect, you'll find that the people say they are the closest to the methodology of the Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Is that statement correct? Yes. Listen. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah said that the Asha'ira who believe this, they are the closest to the they are the closest to the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. There's a statement from him in his book that he does say this. They are the closest to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But notice when they say closest, what does that necessitate? When you say closest, does not mean that you're the individual. Meaning you're the closest in similarity of your resemblance, but there's a slight difference which negates that you're not from that individual. The reason why he's saying that is to let the people know of the reason of why the majority of the people became fooled by them. They became fooled by them because they resembled the people of the Sunnah in certain aspects to the point where they were the closest to them, even though at the same time they were not from them. Meaning that you can be fooled by them. Similar to that, for example, a person will say, what's your dalil? Your dalil is in the Sunnah. In Sahih al-Bukhari, when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said about the Khawarij, he said, what did he say to the companions? He said, you will look down upon your prayer to their prayer, meaning they pray more than you. You will, their recitation of the Quran and them staying up long hours of the night, you will look down upon yours and compare to theirs, meaning their diligence and their hard working in worship. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned this in this way about the Khawarij to praise them, everyone? No. He was mentioning them to say, these will be the reasons why you'll be fooled by them. Because you will see these praiseworthy traits. That's why he said at the end of the same context, what everyone? They will leave out the fold of Islam similar to how the arrow leaves out the bow. So, a person would say, how the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this, and at the same time, this is their reality, but he mentioned to them these praiseworthy traits. Because he's saying that here, what? They resemble in certain aspects, but due to their deviation in their creed, made them what? Not from amongst the people of the truth, even though they resemble them in certain acts of worship, to the point that you look down upon your diligence in regards to theirs. Meaning these will be the reasons why a lot of people will be fooled by them. Same thing to the people from the Asha'ira. During the time of Shaykh al-Islam, a lot of people were fooled due to the fact that they had a lot of what? Resemblances to the people of Sunnah, even though they were not what? Even though they were not from them. Is it clear, everyone? If you want to know about how the gate of the people of deviation, go back if you can, and if not know if they have the actual PDF online, by Abu Hasan Ash'ari, rahimahullah, this book called Maqalat al-Islamiyyin. Maqalat al-Islamiyyin wa ikhtilaf al-Musalli. That book also refutes those who say that Abu Hasan Ash'ari did not retract what he was upon. Because you'll find that from the Asha'ira or from the Ahbash, those who've been affected, they'll say that the word al-Ibana. As we know, Abu Hasan Ash'ari wrote a book called al-Ibana, was to let one know that he made tawbah from what he was upon, those errors. To this day, they try hard to say that that book has been falsely ascribed to him. To say, you don't have no evidence because that book, that was falsely ascribed to him. So you can't use that to say that he retracted it. So they utilize that in order to remain with their upon of those errors that Abu Hasan Ash'ari made tawbah from. So in order for them to remain with their upon, they tried to now falsely ascribe the book to him, say, no, it was a lie, he didn't even write the book. But what about مقالات الإسلاميين. What about مقالات الإسلاميين واختلاف المصلين? There's another book that Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari wrote that's been clearly ascribed to him, where he refutes this. He refutes what he was upon before. So if you don't believe that book, then take this one. And they'll try to say, well, what's your proof? So if you go to Imam al-Zahabi and Ibn Kathir and other than them, from the ulama al-Tawarikh, they say that book has been of Ibana and also Maqalat al-Islamiyyin, both have been accurately ascribed to Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. So either you're lying or Imam Zahabi is lying. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So you want to say Imam al-Zahabi is lying in his book, in Tarikh, from the greatest of the ulama of the past, rahimahullah. So those books are utilized in order to falsely destroy the foundations of the Asha'ira of today, of those who've been affected by the old ideologies that Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari rahimahullah made tawbah from. And we said in actuality, they're not called Asha'ira, rather they should be called what? Kullabiyun. As they should not be ascribed to the followers of Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, because he made tawbah clearly in those books. Is it clear, everyone? Is it clear? Fine, we'll continue tomorrow. Any questions about the lesson? I'm saying this because this is the knowledge that you have to be aware of, because these shayateen are out here. As the shaitan is working very busy these days. He's very busy these days. In every way imaginable, whether it be in shahwat, whether it be in desires, or doubtful matters, concerning every aspect you can think of. Whether it be the scholars, whether it be the ulama, whether it be Aqidat al-Salafiyah, whether it be the people of the truth, whether it's so many different aspects. That if a person does not have usul Salafiyah with them, they're destroyed these days. Wallahi, they're destroyed. If you don't have proper usul to know how to deal with these type of fitna these days, you're destroyed. Wallahi, you're destroyed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us firm. You keep our feet planted firm these days. Anything else about the lesson? Anything else? We'll stop here. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.